quick, exciting insight I've always appreciated that I got to read from John Lennox. I think I read it or I heard him talk about it, but I think it's in his book, God's Undertaker, Has Science Buried God? Brilliant book. If you have not read that book as a Christian, it is such a equipping book to read, and will give you a lot of confidence in your faith being grounded in the rational universe that you exist in. But anyway, so Dr. Lennox says, the genetics and the DNA that we share with apes, monkeys, is so similar. I think it may not be 99%, but we share such a high percentage, 97 to 99% of our DNA and genetics with apes. And so that causes a lot of concern for Christians, because then it's like, well, then doesn't that prove we evolved from apes? But John Lennox actually says something so awesome. He goes, well, the difference between a human being, a human person, and a gorilla or a monkey is such a universe apart. The actual difference between us, just objectively and visibly, that the explanation cannot be DNA or genetics. That can't be the explanation of the difference between the human being and the monkey. The explanation would have to be something other. It would have to be something metaphysical. It would have to be something transcendent. And the fact that we are created in the image of God, and that we are more than mere earthly beings, that we actually are embodied spirits, and that there is an entity, an energy to us that is not of this world. And that is what makes us different than the animal kingdom. But then in that same way, I'm not a disembodied spirit. Can I exist in a disembodied state? Yes, and it seems temporarily so, but it doesn't seem that that's supposed to be my telos. That's not the end of where I'm intended to be. It seems like I'm intended to be embodied, which is why there's a resurrection. And as an embodied spirit, I am an animal. I'm more than an animal, but I'm also an animal creature, and I need to eat. I need to sleep. I'm an animal that has appetites. The question will be, as a embodied spirit, is, am I going to be ruled by those appetites? Am I going to be a mere animal that merely follows the impulses of my natural appetites and natural desires? Or am I more than an animal, and being created in the image of God, I'm actually called to steward this being that I've been given, this body and these appetites, and yield them in obedience to the one whose image I'm created in. And that gives me a better understanding of what happens to the human race when we reject God relationally, when we actually resist God's offers and interruptions and calling for us to experience him relationally and to enter into a relationship with him. When we reject that, we're actually rejecting the very source of our being. We're actually rejecting what makes us living spirits in the first place. And in doing so, we actually become more and more as mere animals. And this is what is talked about, that as humanity rejects God, we become more and more like mere animals, given over to the lusts and the appetites and the desires of mere creatures. And I think that helps me understand a little bit more about the difference between living into the image of God that I was created to live into, or just giving myself over to my natural appetites, which, by the way, those appetites don't have to necessarily be wrong or evil, but they were called to be subordinated, to be yielded and surrendered in obedience and worship to the one who created us to steward those appetites in his image.